Hello everyone, Dr. Eames here. What I'd like to talk about this time is a few more of the theorists representing scientific management, which is half of the classical management perspective and of course deals with the efficiency of the individual and their performance in the workplace. The first set of theorists I'd like to talk about is Frank and Lilian Gilbreth. They were born about the time of the Civil War. Uh, Frank lived until 1924. Lillian lived until 1972, nearly 100 years old. Both of them were sort of minor celebrities of the day who were very much involved in pushing the new ideas of scientific management, which indeed became the foundation for the first real understanding of profession of management as we know it today. Frank was an industrial engineer. He was mainly working in the bricklaying industry, and he wrote some interesting treatises on how to do bricklaying better than ever before and efficiently. Um, Lillian was a noted industrial psychologist, and remember at this time, about the turn of the 20th century or so, psychology, like management, was a new and budding field. We were just learning things about individual behavior and group behavior and things like that. And so she contributed to the field of personnel management, while Frank was quite involved in time motion studies and so forth and pushing the ideas of scientific management. Their contributions together were that they refined Taylor's work on stop motion studies and observing and creating those scientifically designed methods of doing jobs and so forth, and just basically enhanced what was already out there and what had come before. They studied worker-related fatigue problems caused by the working environment and things like that. They were very well known for their large family. I think they had something like 14 kids, and being the minor celebrities of the day in the 30s, they had a movie made about their life and their family, Cheaper by the Dozen. You may have seen it. It's been remade many times, starting with some black and white productions way back. What was interesting is I've seen one of those earliest Cheaper by the Dozen films, and it is they follow what we know to be true about Frank and Lillian, how they ran their family. They were so taken with the principles of scientific management and being efficient that they indeed ran their family that way. One classic scene in the movie, which appears to be true, is that they had children of all ages, right? So the oldest children on a typical day when kids had to run off and go to school and so forth. This is when cars weren't really prominent everywhere, but we had the first cars going up and down the road, but mainly still horse and buggy days. The older children would stand by the door in the morning with the sweaters or coats, and another one would hand out sweaters or jackets. A couple other, not quite as old, might be in the kitchen getting the lunches ready for the various kids, working with the mom. And Frank Taylor would stand there at the bottom of the stairway, and all these young kids would be screaming and yelling early in the morning and running down the stairs and sliding down the banisters. And as they hit down at the bottom and headed out the front door, the older kids would hand them their lunch and their jacket or whatever it was. And when the last kid went out the door and the last older child shut the door and said, "See you later, Dad," he would click his stopwatch. And he ran his whole family that way. And he would say something like, "Oh, well, we're about 10 seconds behind where we were yesterday, and what's our best normal time for getting out of here efficiently? And we'll work on it." And so, interesting family, but very much tied up in these powerful ideas of scientific management. The next theorist I'd like to talk about is Henry Gantt. Now, Henry Gantt was an associate of Frederick Taylor, very much also involved in pushing these new ideas, and he worked in the steel industry and was concerned about improving performance in that. His contributions were also that he looked at Taylor's piecework schedules, among other things, and refined them. So again, we see that Frederick Taylor was a giant in these times, and that he was out there everywhere, and people were looking at the things he said and agreeing with him mainly, and refining his ideas and then applying them to basic industries and so forth. What Henry Gantt is known for, and here's another person born about the time of the Civil War, made it through 1919, something like that, lived through the First World War. He gave us the Gantt chart. Well, the Gantt chart today is still very much in use for everything. It's really an Excel spreadsheet. rows and columns. You put some information in columns and some in rows. You can figure out schedules, know how you're going to plan things into the future. A very useful tool, and we still use it today, and it came out of scientific management. The last theorist I'd like to talk about for scientific management itself, concerned again with the efficiency of the individual and all the individual's workers' performance, is Harrington Emerson. Now, he lived a little bit later. He was born about the time of the Civil War and lived in 1930s. He was one of the very first management consultants, along with Frederick Taylor and others like the Gilbreths and Henry Gantt. He went out and spoke at colleges and universities in front of Congress and those sorts of things. And what he is known for is that he advocated specialized management roles. In other words, managers ought to know something about the field that they're overseeing. And so we have that today with marketing managers are in the marketing department, and general managers are in the administration department, and research and development managers are in the research department, and so forth. Well, that's what he was getting at way back in this early time, at the time of changing of the really becoming a new profession and so forth. Okay, that's all I want to talk about this time, folks. I'll pick it up on the second half of classical management perspective with administrative management on the next one.